other cities, and I did not see a formal opting out. I know it does say that we have city, and I think it would reference city code 1-111, which says that we should publish, but it doesn't specifically say we have to publish the full ordinance. But I think we have two options, or actually three options. One, we can continue to do it the way that we are doing it, which is on ordinances that require the full publication, we do that. But if the ordinance summary is allowed by statute, that's what we do. Because I don't think that we have to do a formal opting out. Or two, we can designate each time you pass an ordinance, whether you want it to be opted out of, or whether you want it to be a full ordinance. Or three, we can pass a resolution, which is something that I just drew up real simple, that says the city of Marion opts out of publishing a full ordinance, and we'll use an ordinance summary in those cases that the statute allows us to do so.
Okay.
So, and I just wanna make sure I address your concerns, Ruth, that you have.
I was trying to find the state statute on that because it says, do you have that with you?
Yeah, I've been carrying it around for like,
I know mine for workshop too.
Were you too far out of your chair?
Thought I shot you already, huh?
but I know when I read the language of that statute, it states what has to be in an ordinance summary. It has to be state when it was published, the ordinance that it's summarizing, that it's available, what it's about, that it's available on the city website, and when it's published.
You know, on the city website, is it proper too, that a book quickly gets that fixed? Because you can't hardly find it on the city website. Have you ever tried to go in there and find an ordinance?
Yes, and Tiffany has helped me because it's not where I intuitively thought it should be, but now I know.
And I can't find that.
It's sort of like finding a statute.
Oh, here it is. Okay, the state statute says, in lieu of the full publication of an ordinance pursuant to this section, a city may opt out to publish a summary of the ordinance.
Which, to me, when I talked to the league, they said it wasn't a formal opting out, but I do have a resolution, if that is the way you want to address that. If that would make everyone clearer, then I can present that to the mayor, if that's what you want to handle.
Okay, I just have a question on, ordinance 11-5-01.
Now, 11,
This is something else, but
oh,
it pertains to the same thing,
okay,
because section 8 is missing on the city website. Did you try to find section 8 to see what it was?
I didn't know I was looking for section 8 of 11-501, but I can.
No, but this is just as an example, because we published the full ordinance, but on the city website, section 8 is blank, is repeated. I had to go to the city library and check that out because the full ordinance had been printed, which I found very helpful. And this is what I'm saying, because I think the people need to know what we're passing.
And I understand that we need to know what we're passing, but I think if Tiffany can get it so that we can find the ordinances on the website, then I think we have sufficiently met what the statute states, because,
But Susan, do you really think that everybody uses a computer and can go in and look at that?
no, probably not everyone uses a computer, I don't know, but I'm just saying that's what the statute allows, and I'm trying to be respectful of the budget because I know how much publishing things in the paper costs.
Will we waste enough money on other things? I think that I'm for publishing a full
Okay, that,
ordinance. That's the
I'll,
way I like to go. But
I will do
it's up to
whatever
the
you
council.
guys-
I'm just one of five.
I was gonna say, I'll do whatever you direct me to do.
What do you
Well,
think, Dave?
Since 2012, we've published some.
Yeah, since 2012, we published numbers before my time, and I did check, I did run my summary next to summaries from other cities, like the city of Hillsborough, and mine is just pretty much exactly like what they do, but not that that makes it right or not, but I just wanted to make sure to see how I compared.
Well, I think the public also has the option of coming into the office
They do,
and they can get a copy of it to read. Well, I'd like to see the resolution.
Sure, it's really short and sweet.
I'll just read this so we'll all be aware of what it says. Resolution declaring that the city of Marion ought to publish ordinance summaries for those ordinances not required to be published in full. Whereas the city of Marion, Kansas desires to be financially responsible as to the city's expenditure of public funds or publication costs incurred by the city of Marion, and whereas KSA 12-3007 allows the city to publish an ordinance summary in place of full publication for certain ordinances. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Marion that the city officially opts to publish ordinance summaries pursuant to KSA 12-3007 when authorized by Kansas law. Any questions? Concern? Do we wanna pass this tonight, or look at it at the next meeting, or?
I'm sorry I sprung it on you, so if you wanna look at it at the next meeting, I can make sure that copies are provided to everybody, if that's what you want, or you can do
that
it.
would be good.
Everybody fine with that? Look at
I can go
that.
either way, but
Huh?
I can go either way.
Okay. Put it on the agenda, I guess, for the next meeting. You need this back?
No.
Alright.
Can we get a copy from the office?
I can email it to you
Okay,
in my,
Thank you.
and I'll try and put it in Word, since you hate the word processing stuff.
Sorry,
Just
I'm
giving the
looking
sample
at this
summary.
Okay, the next question that I think came up had to do with, putting forth the salaries by ordinance, because there was a question about that. So, when the city adopted the personnel policies and procedures, in ordinance number 12-42, which was done in 2004, then the ordinances, 1062 and 1093 were repealed, and that was like, an example, that was where they said like a utility foreman shall make this or whatever. Okay, and then I think you had a question, and maybe I'm wrong, because when we adopted the whole codification, did we repeal this by mistake, was that repealed? And so, when we adopted the recodification, ordinance number 1378 specifically exempts certain ordinances from repeal, those being ordinances relating to compensation of officials, officers, and employees of the city. So I think we're good, but I would agree with you that there are some things that we've mentioned in the personnel manual. Like, I think it still says in the personnel manual that you have to set ordinance, that some salaries are set by ordinance. And so I think there are things in that personnel manual that need to get cleaned up, corrected. And so I will be making a list so we can get those all cleaned up and corrected. And to be honest, you have probably looked at that more than I have, Ruth. So I would be happy to run that list by you of the things that need to be cleaned up and corrected, just to make sure that all of our references are correct, that we're not saying we're doing this by ordinance when really we're doing it by the personnel manual, those kind of things.
This is all I'm asking, is that we get this stuff updated and corrected.
Right.
And as far as the ordinance, 1093 and 1062, those were repealed in, 04,
Right,
before we ever did this codification.
right,
And codification repealed everything except that list that was in.
right, because it didn't give specific numbers, but it did, that one is exempted out of the repeal.
But it was gone before we ever did the codification, is what I'm saying. And there was 19 different items that we could, bring forward. And so we couldn't bring that forward as far as, salary and duties, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I think I understand, but as long as we're on the same page that we just wanna clean things up with regard to the personnel manual and everything, then I'm good with that. Okay. then the final thing that, you brought up was the residency language that is in there.
That's it, missing section 8.
Right, but not, it's, okay, let me say this. The question about whether appointed officials need to live within the city limits, I think is what you raised. And, I went back and started looking, and I know that the mayor also talked to Jim Crowfoot, because this has been an issue that the city has addressed in the past, because we've had city officials that live outside the city residence. We've had at least 2 previous city administrators that have lived outside the city boundaries. We had Dennis Nickel, who was the first one who came after Diane Head as city administrator, and then we had, Doug Lee. Right. So, I went back and looked at, the minutes from when a certain, let me start again. Okay, so we had, previously had, Charter Ordinance 5-01, which talked
That was
about,
11
what?
Wasn't that 11-0501?
And it could be the copy I had
Yeah,
just said
what I
11.
just said, yeah,
Yeah.
but you have to go back and look at that section 8 and find that, and then you understand where it comes from.
Right, but I guess I'll just start like this. When Charter Ordinance 12-02, which should have a number in front of it, was passed, by the city, it was done, at the request of the city council, because it replaces section 8 of Charter Ordinance number whatever, 05-01, relating to the residency requirement. And when that was passed, it was, I think the minutes show that, Judge Pollock, not Judge then, presented the charter ordinance repealing and replacing section 8 of Charter Ordinance number 05-01 relating to the residency requirements of appointed officers. And it was done and removed, and at that time, that was when Doug Schleen was the city administrator, and I don't know if Becky Makovic was the city treasurer at that point, but I believe she worked for the city at that point. And so I believe that's why that was done, because prior to that, there was a charter ordinance that said you had to, or something that said you had to be within 3 miles of the
And
city
that's what they
boundaries.
removed in
Right.
section 8.
That's what they removed, and just left it no residency requirements. And so that's what was passed in Charter Ordinance 12-02. Then later on, we get another charter ordinance, which is Charter Ordinance number 17, which is 15-01. And that's the one that doesn't have the section 8. But it has the language that is used in Charter Ordinance number 12-02 in section 5 of it.
Okay, go ahead.
So, in that ordinance, again, it says, at the top, it says an ordinance exempting the city of Marion from the provisions of KSA 14-201 and KSA 14-204, talking about elections, and it talks about repealing Charter Ordinance number 11, which is 05-01, which is this one, but it contains the language in it that was used in Charter Ordinance number 12-02, which is not really that number, but that one, that talks about removing the residency requirements. So, to me, the intent when this was passed and when the other was passed was to have no residency requirements for these appointed officers. And I think that comes through because we had previous city administrators and a city treasurer who never resided within the city of Marion at the time that we had passed that first one. But I do understand that the language is a little unclear. And so I have drafted a charter ordinance that takes care of that and incorporates two charter ordinances into one so that we aren't looking for this section and for this section to put together. And I'm gonna give that to the mayor. That includes charter ordinance number 17 and charter ordinance number 18, and I combine them to hopefully make everything clear as mud. So I'm me to give you that as well? Because I do understand what you're saying, that this one doesn't have section 8, where at one point it did. But it also includes the language that was used in the other one where we talked about removing residency requirements. So I have tried to do a charter ordinance that puts everything together so that we only have one place to go to find out about it. Because it would appear to me from the history that I did, and after talking with the mayor, because he recalls some of this as well, and after talking with Judge Collett, who was the city attorney at that point, they were trying to come up with a way to remove the residency requirements so we could keep the city administrator that we had at the time as well as the city treasurer. And we still have the same city treasurer, so.
This is instance from 14-205, and that's the residency requirements, correct? Okay.
Mhm.
That's basically what this.
Yeah.
This does. Well, for discussion purposes, would the council want to look at this tonight, or you want to put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
On the agenda with the other one.
Okay. Put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Anything further?
I don't think so, well, unless you have something else that I missed. Those are the 3 things that
Well,
I
I just noticed did you look at the state statute on that?
had. Yeah,
On the residency?
I did, and so, from what I could tell, the intent when, the one charter ordinance was filed was to opt out of 14-201. I think truly it should have been actually opting out of 14-205, which is why I did the, charter. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to number 18, I have a letter here I want to read to the public and the council. This is from the Kansas Department of Commerce. It says, "Dear Mayor Mayfield, I am pleased to award your city a commercial rehabilitation grant through the U.S. Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program. This award of $250,000 will include a new roof, repairs to masonry, gutter drainage, and water damage, as well as window and door replacement for businesses that will be located at 301 East Main. This award is contingent upon satisfaction of the conditions outlined in Deputy Secretary Murphy's letter, which will follow shortly, and the execution of the grant agreement. Neither private nor public funds may be expended on any activity that could have an adverse environmental impact or limit the choice of reasonable alternative until the Department of Commerce approves the request for release of funds and environmental certification. Once again, you are to be congratulated for developing a fine project that will not only benefit your community, but also produce a positive economic benefit for the entire state." And it's signed by David Tolan, Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of Commerce. And that's for the building downtown.
301 West Main.
Right. Okay?
Anyone?
301.
Yeah.
Gary, you got anything you wanna say?
I think it's time to quit.
Good. Chris? Anything, Susan?
Wrong
Bruce?
Susan.
Okay, Randy?
At your place this evening, you should see the new Marion brochure that's literally hot off the presses. Marion Merchants put that together, and we just received those last week. So, we got a couple thousand of them that will be distributed everywhere. Something that our people have been asking for, so. You'll find one typo in it, and I'm not gonna tell you what it is. You can search for it.
Alright.
And then the other piece of good news today is what you just read.
Yeah,
That letter hit this afternoon, and I can tell you that the Joneses and our grant administrator are doing a happy dance, so.
so did they
Now-
receive a copy of this letter also?
They did.
Okay.
They did. The person from the Department of Commerce who did the inspection a week and a half ago distributed that letter to us, so he copied everybody who was in that meeting that day, so
Okay.
They're-
Mario,
they're excited.
nothing? Quentin?
Nothing?
Tim, you got anything you wanna say?
Good.
Susan, anything further? Tiffany? Right,
I'm observing.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
No public forum?
Oh, yeah, we got public, anybody wanna speak public forum? No, they don't. I'm afraid Jerry will shut them off.
I moved.
I second.
And move second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Carried, 5-0.